Chapter 1. Can you take notes? The first clue that something had shifted came not with a bang, but with silence. It was Tuesday morning. I walked into the office kitchen, same as always, grabbed the last clean mug from the rack, poured myself the bitter half-inch of coffee that hadn't yet burned. Nothing unusual. Until I noticed Amanda snapping her laptop closed just a beat too quickly. Jace was mid-laugh, leaning back against the counter like he owned the place. Priya stood off to the side, eyes on her phone, chewing her lower lip the way she always did when she was trying not to get caught in something messy. "Morning," I said, deliberately casual. Amanda's smile flickered across her face like a glitch. "Oh, hey, Ethan. We just had a little touch base. Quick sync." I raised an eyebrow. Was this a spontaneous sync, with a shared agenda and calendar invite? Her laugh was airy. "Nothing urgent." Jace tossed his paper cup in the trash and smirked. "Yeah, just ideas for rollout. No code stuff." Priya didn't say a word. I nodded slowly. "Good to know. Anything I should loop in on?" Amanda tilted her head, the way people do when they're pretending to include you in something they've already decided you're not part of. "Actually, could you take a look at the action items later? Priya's keeping notes." I glanced at Priya. She still hadn't looked up. Just opened a new app and scrolled like her screen had the answers. "Sure," I said, masking the heat in my chest with a practiced smile. "Happy to help." Back at my desk, I refreshed my inbox. No invite. No doc. Nothing. Just the usual noise. Daily stand-up notes, deployment logs, the ongoing chaos of a team that ran on blind confidence, and someone else's grunt work. Mostly mine. After a few minutes, a Slack message popped up from Priya. A shared doc titled Strategy Sync _final _real _v2. I opened it. Half the cells were blank. The ones that weren't were vague bullet points with Jace's initials at the end. One of them literally read, "Make sure someone handles system coverage?" Like that was a bold new idea. I didn't say a word. I just saved the file, logged the timestamp, and created a new folder in my personal drive, nested just deep enough to stay invisible. I named it when _IT breaks don't ask. Because they didn't want my input. They wanted a failsafe. A quiet one. And I was done pretending to be invisible. Just so their deadlines could survive. Chapter 2. Glorified Clipboard. There was a time I was the first person they called. System glitch? Ask Ethan. Analytics down? Ping Ethan. Data pipeline frozen overnight, and nobody knows why. Guess who's logging in at 6:12 a.m. to clean it up before Amanda notices? I didn't mind it, not at first. I liked the puzzle of it all. Making things work behind the scenes. Being the guy who kept the wheels turning while everyone else fought over whose name went on the deck. But then came the new restructure. New titles. New priorities. New team alignment where somehow Amanda got more oversight, and I got more vague, undefined support duties. That's when things shifted. My Slack pings got quieter. My meetings started ending early, without me. The weekly strategy call moved from Tuesday to Monday, and no one thought to update my calendar. Amanda started referring to me in third person while I was on the call. If Ethan can handle the back end, we should be good to go. If. Not even when or once he confirms. Just a breezy assumption that I'd catch whatever fell. The last straw was a client presentation. Jace stood at the front of the room, selling a dashboard I'd built from scratch like it was a vision he dreamed up in his overpriced hoodie. He even cracked a joke about how our engineers are wizards, we don't even know what they do back there. Everyone laughed. I didn't. That's when I knew what I was to them. Not a teammate. Not a lead. Just a clipboard. Digital. Disposable. So I did what you do with clipboards when you're done using them. I put myself on the shelf. Not in protest. Not in anger. Just quietly. Strategically. Because if they were so sure they didn't need me at the table, I wanted to see how far they'd get. without the guy who built the room. Chapter 3: Slack Ghosting. At first, I thought it was the algorithm. Slack's notification settings can be weird. Muted threads. Silent mentions. I told myself maybe the app just wasn't pushing alerts the way it used to. But then I saw it happen in real time. Jace posted a vague question about API response lags in the hashtag prod support thread. I replied 2 minutes later with a direct answer, and the actual server path causing the delay. No reaction. Not even a thumbs up. For minutes after that, Amanda chimed in, tagging Jace. Could be a caching issue, maybe something to flag with devs? Jace responded with 3 fire emojis and a great point. I scrolled up. Stared at my own reply. Still unread. Still sitting there like I'd whispered it into a void. This wasn't accidental. They'd built a rhythm around ignoring me, not to my face, but sideways. Subtle. Just enough plausible deniability to make me second-guess whether I was imagining it. Then they made it concrete. The quarterly planning doc, usually a shared artifact we'd all contribute to, had a new permission setting. I was view-only. Couldn't comment. Couldn't edit. Couldn't even suggest changes. I messaged Amanda. Hey, just a heads up, looks like I'm view-only on the Q3 doc. Want me to add my sections in a separate file? She replied 2 hours later. Oh. That must have been a settings hiccup. We're pretty set for now, but thanks. No offer to fix it. No follow-up. Just a cheery shutout dressed up in emoji politeness. I sat back in my chair, watching the cursor blink on the document I'd once helped design from the ground up. A workflow I'd built. A reporting system I'd fine-tuned. A launch calendar that only made sense because I'd kept it breathing between meetings no one invited me to anymore. And I realized something. They didn't just want me silent. They wanted me out, but still useful. A safety net with no say. So I stopped correcting them. If they wanted to build something on shaky logic and buzzwords, I wasn't going to argue. I just stopped offering warnings. Let them reuse old processes without updates. Let them reuse old decks with outdated metrics. If they saw my silence as a weakness, I'd make sure it stayed quiet. Right up until the moment it became catastrophic. Chapter 4: No One Asked You. By the time the Thursday stand-up rolled around, I already knew how it would go. Amanda liked to open with a recap, not to align the team, but to remind everyone she was the one steering the ship. Jace would toss in some jargon about velocity, or client-facing synergy, and Priya would nod with practiced enthusiasm. Me? I was just there. Quiet square in the Zoom gallery. Muted by default. But that morning, something slipped. Amanda was recapping a delay in deployment from earlier in the week. There was a minor hiccup on the back end Tuesday morning, but Jace handled it. Handled it? Jace had pinged me in a private DM with nothing but a question mark and the phrase, "Stuff's broken?" I fixed it in under 5 minutes, sent him the commit log, and got back to actual work. Now, he just nodded on the call like a hero who'd pulled the company back from the brink. I unmuted. Just to clarify, I said, keeping my tone even, the Tuesday fix came through a hot patch I pushed. Jace flagged it, but I handled the deployment. Amanda didn't miss a beat. Right, she said, like I'd offered an irrelevant weather update. Anyway, for next steps. She kept talking. And just like that, the floor vanished beneath me. Priya avoided my eyes. Jace leaned back and sipped from a mug that probably still had the label on it from whatever influencer gift box he'd gotten it from. They'd decided. I was out. Not fired, not demoted, just erased. Erased from credit, from conversation, from the version of the team that got visibility. And yet they still expected me to fix the code. Maintain the automations. Keep the train on the tracks while they repainted the engine in their names. The call ended. No one said thanks. No one said my name. And I sat there, staring at my screen, something settling in my chest, not bitterness, not quite. Just precision. They didn't want input. They didn't want memory. Fine. From that point on, I would give them exactly what they asked for. Nothing more. Nothing less. Chapter 5: Autopilot. The shift was subtle at first. Barely noticeable. I stopped chasing broken things. Normally, I'd catch the warning signs, a log entry that looked off, a cron job blinking just a little too long, a permissions quirk buried 3 layers deep. I'd flag it, fix it, document the fix, then circle back to make sure no one tripped on it again. But now, I let them trip. The first time it happened, a weekly report didn't send. Jace panicked in Slack. Something about missing data and a VP breathing down his neck. I saw the messages. Watched the thread unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Amanda asked if anyone could jump in. Priya suggested rebooting the dashboard. No one tagged me, so I didn't answer. Eventually, someone figured out how to export a CSV and paste it into a Google Sheet. Took them 3 hours. Looked like hell. And I just watched. It became a rhythm. They broke things. I let them. Processes I'd quietly optimized months ago started to fray, not enough to trigger an alert, but enough to add friction. A report would time out. A file path would revert. A shortcut script I'd written would disappear from a shared folder. They didn't even realize what was failing, because they never knew what was holding it up in the first place. Amanda once messaged me, half flustered. "Hey, quick favor, can you make sure the Monday metrics keep pulling cleanly?" I read it twice. Favor. As if I hadn't been keeping that entire pipeline clean for 6 quarters straight. "Sure," I replied. Then I let it run without the patch I usually applied manually. It broke on Tuesday. Amanda blamed the data team. Jace submitted a support ticket. Priya tagged the wrong developer. No one tagged me. That was fine. Because I was done offering guardrails. They'd built their own little ecosystem of self-congratulation, all slogans and editable templates and canvas slides. Let them collaborate. I had switched to autopilot. And soon, I'd be landing somewhere else. Chapter 6: The Phantom Task List. I wasn't technically removed from the team. I still got the calendar invites, to the all-hands, to the virtual happy hours, even to Jace's poorly disguised brainstorm and brag sessions. I was still on the org chart. Still had admin privileges. But what I didn't have was a voice. Amanda sent out a task list in a team-wide email. A big spreadsheet with fancy color coding, formulas, tabs for deliverables, dependencies, due dates. Everyone's initials were there. Everyone's, except mine. Not even a placeholder. She didn't assign me a single item. When I scrolled through the doc, I saw Jace had somehow taken credit for setting up the reporting framework, the one I'd built from scratch over 6 weeks. Priya was listed as owner of the rollout process, a process she once asked me to re-explain 3 different times because the workflow diagram gave her anxiety. And Amanda? She listed herself as final review and escalation. Of course she did. I kept reading, half out of curiosity, half to confirm what I already suspected. In the corner of the spreadsheet was a note. Ethan to provide back-end support. As needed. As needed. I wasn't a team member anymore. I was a failsafe. Invisible until something broke. Silent until someone else's bad decision triggered a fire I'd be expected to quietly put out before anyone noticed it started. Amanda pinged me later that day. "Hey! Could you just make sure everything keeps humming on the back end through next week? We've got a lot riding on the demo." No specifics. No acknowledgement. Just a breezy request like she was talking to a service bot. "Sure," I replied. "I'll make sure everything's stable." I didn't lie. I just didn't mention that I'd already started duplicating key scripts into a personal sandbox. That I'd set version tracking to private. That I'd logged every change Amanda and Jace had made without documentation. I wasn't planning to sabotage them. I was just done carrying the load for people who couldn't be bothered to remember I existed, until they needed someone to blame. The system still worked. For now. But they'd built their launch on a scaffold I no longer felt compelled to reinforce. Chapter 7: Miles Notices. Miles wasn't part of the clique. He was too new. Too smart. Too unpolished in a way that made Amanda nervous, like he might accidentally expose how little some people actually did. He joined a month ago, quiet and observant. Most people treated him like a walking to-do list. Amanda introduced him to the team with a chirpy, "He'll be helping wherever we need a little extra elbow grease." Jace called him kid, even though they were probably the same age. But Miles didn't ask me dumb questions. He asked precise ones. The first time he approached me, it wasn't even work-related. He stopped by my desk holding a stale-looking protein bar and said, "Hey, you're the one who built the alerting framework, right? The one with the progressive thresholds instead of hard triggers?" I looked up, surprised. "You read that?" He shrugged. "Yeah. It's clean. Noticed it doesn't flag false positives on burst traffic. I've only seen that done well once before, and that was in a fintech sandbox." That was the entire conversation. He didn't ask me to teach him. He didn't pretend to understand more than he did. He just noticed. A week later, he came by again. "Hey," he said casually, "I was poking around the repo, and I saw you've got a mirrored structure in your private branch. Same scripts, just cleaner. More stable." I didn't respond immediately. He held up his hands. "I'm not reporting you. I just figured, whatever you're building in there is probably the version we should be using." I smiled, for the first time in weeks. "It's not sabotage. I didn't say it was." We locked eyes for a moment. He wasn't looking to rat me out. He was trying to understand. And more than that, he was smart enough to see the pattern. "Let me guess," he said, tilting his head. "They love your systems but hate having to admit they rely on you." I didn't answer. He just grinned. "Got it." From that day on, Miles never copied Amanda on emails unless he had to. He stopped quoting Jace in stand-ups and started running his own diagnostics. He rerouted his reporting access quietly through the archived nodes I'd set up months ago. And he always, made sure to check with me before pushing anything to production. He never asked what I was planning. He didn't need to. He already knew. Chapter 8: Scheduled Absence. The message was simple. "Hey, I'll be offline next Friday. Just a heads up in case anything needs shifting ahead of time." I sent it on Monday. Direct. Polite. No dramatic flair. Just enough notice to be responsible, and enough rope for them to hang themselves. Amanda's reply was a single thumbs-up emoji. That was it. No question about coverage. No double-checking system dependencies. No backup plan discussed. Just a pink sweater-powered assumption that the tech stack she barely understood would keep humming, without the guy who kept it breathing. Jace didn't respond at all. Miles, though, he stopped by my desk that afternoon. "You're really taking a day off?" he asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. "Yup," I said. "Figured I'd see what happens when they run the machine without the maintenance manual." He smirked. "Balls it. Not really," I said. "Everything's still there. Just not obvious." I'd spent the last 2 weeks quietly disentangling myself from every live wire. Not unplugging them, just rerouting the voltage. So it would all look fine, until it wasn't. The scripts would fail silently. The triggers wouldn't cascade. The backup cron jobs I used to check twice a day? I let them expire. I even left behind documentation. Just not where they'd look. It wasn't revenge. It was release. I'd given them every chance. Every courtesy. Every possible off-ramp from the cliff they insisted on driving toward. Now I was just stepping out of the vehicle. Friday morning, I logged off with a clean desktop, a clear conscience, and a fresh cup of coffee in my hand. By 9:14 a.m., the alerts would start. And this time? No one was coming to clean it up. Chapter 9, Friday, 9:14 a.m. I wasn't watching the system. I was watching the clock. At exactly 9:14 a.m., I took a sip of coffee and looked out the window of the cafe I'd picked for my day off. No laptop. No Slack. Just a quiet corner table and the faint hum of espresso machines in the background. And somewhere, back in that open floor plan zoo they called an office, the lights started flickering. Figuratively, of course. The first domino was the metrics dashboard. It didn't load, just spun in place with a cheerful, retrieving data, message that never went away. Then came the client sandbox, access denied. And the internal reporting tool? Dead on arrival. No logs, no history, no data. Everything had been wired to depend on just enough manual touchpoints to keep it stable. Remove those? It looked like the system was running, until it wasn't. At 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Amanda. Hey! Do you happen to know why the dashboards aren't loading? 3 minutes later. Jace. Seeing weird back-end lag. Is this from your patch last week? 2 more after that. Amanda again. Need your eyes ASAP. We're showing incomplete data in the client demo. I didn't respond. They didn't ask where I was. Didn't offer context. Just fired off messages like I was the office fire extinguisher they could yank off the wall in case of smoke. The cafe stayed calm. The coffee was still hot. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, letting their panic collect in the void I'd left behind. I wasn't being petty. I was being precise. This was what happened when people built castles on someone else's foundation, and forgot to ask if the concrete was still being poured. They hadn't noticed the quiet unraveling. But now, as the pieces scattered, they remembered. Not just what I did, but what I'd stopped doing. Chapter 10. The Panic Thread. By 9:38 a.m., they stopped pretending. The Slack thread and hashtag launch support had started as a trickle. Jace flagged. Minor irregularities. Priya chimed in that she couldn't access the sandbox. Amanda posted a vague message about unexpected delays, and assured everyone it was under control. By 9:41, that confidence crumbled. Jace. Client view is blank. All tiles are showing null. Anyone else seeing this? Priya. Same here. Is the pipeline down? Amanda. Does anyone know if Ethan deployed something before today? Jace. Was he even here this morning? Then came the turning point. Miles. He told us on Monday he'd be offline today. It's in the thread. A beat. Then silence. Amanda posted a single message. Can someone reach him? That was the moment they remembered I existed, not as a colleague, but as a failsafe. Only I wasn't there to failsafe anything. I watched the thread scroll by on my phone, muted and out of sight. They were assigning blame, chasing old logs, tripping over scripts they didn't understand. Priya tried to manually reset the queue and somehow kicked off a backup that hadn't been updated since last quarter. At 10:07 a.m., Amanda made it official. Urgent team sync in 5. We need to fix this before the 11 a.m. client call. The invites flew out. I didn't get one. Which was funny. Because every tool failing right now had my name buried in the commit history. Every shortcut they'd taken? Every dependency they never asked about. All traceable. All logged. All mine. Miles messaged me privately a few minutes later. They're panicking. Just FYI. I didn't say anything else. I replied with a single word. Noted. Then I set my phone back down, took another sip of coffee, and let the panic keep climbing. They'd built a team that ran on exclusion. And now they were locked out of the one person who could save them. Chapter 11. Backup Plan. It wasn't my job to rescue them. But someone had to make sure the whole ship didn't sink just because the captain was busy pretending she built it. That someone turned out to be Miles. Around 10:22 a.m., he pinged me again. This time, it wasn't a FYI. Can I get eyes on the clean scripts? They're pulling from the old cache, and it's corrupt. I can reroute if I get into the archive layer. I hesitated. He didn't beg. Didn't pressure. Just laid it out plain. He wasn't covering for Amanda. He was covering for the clients, and the users who never asked for the mess behind the scenes. I sent him the access key. Not admin. Not root. Just enough. 10 minutes later, the Slack thread lit up again. Miles, I've redirected the data pulled to a verified instance. ETA 5 minutes on full restoration. Amanda, how did you do that? Jace, wait, were those Ethan's files? Miles, they were clean. Documented. Secure. So, yeah? Amanda didn't respond. But at 10:48 a.m., she forwarded the entire thread to the senior VP, with her own name at the top of the resolution summary. As if she'd coordinated the fix. Classic Amanda. But this time, someone was watching. Because the VP replied, CCING me. Ethan, heard this recovery was made possible by your foundational work. Let's schedule time next week to discuss infrastructure continuity. Appreciate your contributions, as always. I smiled. Miles hadn't just solved the problem. He'd made the truth visible. And Amanda? She couldn't scrub her name off the chaos she'd created. Turns out, when you rely on invisible labor too long, you forget that someone else might be tracking every move. Chapter 12, The Calendar Update. I logged in Monday morning like nothing had happened. No fanfare. No apology. Just the usual hum of Slack reconnecting, Google Calendar syncing, and the faint glow of unread messages stacking up like nothing had snapped in half the week before. But something was different. My inbox was clean. No frantic recaps from Amanda. No performative, "Thanks for your help last week" messages. No fake concern or spin. Instead, there was a new meeting invite waiting at the top of my screen. Subject: Strategic Infra Roundtable. Organizer: VP of Engineering. Attendees: myself, Miles, Taylor Grimm from Platform Architecture, and no one from Amanda's org. The slot? Friday at 11 a.m. Exactly 1 week after the implosion. I clicked on the invite, then opened my internal profile just out of habit. That's when I saw it. My role had been updated. From support engineer to infrastructure architect led. No announcement. No memo. Just quietly elevated, like someone upstairs had been watching for a while and finally decided it was time to stop pretending. There was more. A private Confluence page I hadn't touched in months. System continuity, Tier 1 stack owners. Now listed me as primary lead on 4 of the 7 core dependencies. Each one of them with full edit access. Each one of them newly locked behind elevated permissions. I hadn't requested any of it. But I wasn't surprised. They'd seen what happened when I stepped away. Now they were making sure I couldn't be sidelined again, not by a manager chasing status. Not by a team too busy quoting each other's nonsense to realize who had been keeping them functional. Miles messaged me just after lunch. Check the comments on Amanda's Q3 roadmap. I did. Her spreadsheet had been duplicated and marked. Deprecated final. A new one sat in the shared drive under a different name. One I hadn't seen before. Infra-led rollout, verified. Owner? Me. Amanda wasn't listed as a collaborator. Jace had been reassigned to front-end metrics support. Priya's calendar was wide open. And I had 2:1:1s scheduled with VPs and a calendar filling fast with new names. People who'd actually read the code before they asked who wrote it. That was the real win. Not the role change. Not the sudden visibility. But the clarity. They'd spent months acting like I was just part of the plumbing. Turns out, when the water stops flowing, people finally start asking who knows how the system works. Chapter 13, The Meeting. Friday came fast. I walked into the executive conference room at 10:58 a.m., laptop under one arm, no notes, just years of mental blueprints that none of them had ever bothered to ask for. The room was nothing like the shared project spaces I was used to. It was quiet, temperature controlled, everything sleek and intentional. Leather chairs. Soundproof walls. No ring lights. No ego posters. Taylor Grimm was already seated. VP of Engineering. Mid-40s. No small talk. Just a nod of acknowledgement, not condescension, not fake surprise. Recognition. Miles arrived right behind me and took a seat without speaking. Smart move. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. When the VP joined, she closed the door behind her and launched right in. We're restructuring infrastructure ownership starting this quarter, she said. Too much reliance on isolated knowledge. Too many black boxes. She didn't name Amanda. She didn't have to. Then she looked directly at me. You documented the system logic behind the failover fix, yes? I nodded. Years ago. It's never been surfaced. We'd like to change that. You've been operating without visibility, but with a degree of control that, frankly, saved us last week. I didn't say anything. She continued. Your work held. The rest didn't. That's not a reflection on you. That's a structural flaw. Taylor chimed in. We're reviewing reporting lines. Your current manager won't be in that chain anymore. If you're willing, we'd like you to lead a small task force. No titles, no politics. Just results. I let the silence stretch a beat longer than necessary. Then, all right. That was it. No grand speech. No I told you so. Just a quiet shift in gravity, away from the ones who talked, toward the ones who built. After the meeting, Miles caught up to me near the elevator. You good? He asked. I looked at him. Yeah. You. He gave a half shrug. I just hope Amanda's enjoying her new calendar real estate. Her Friday sync didn't make it onto anyone's priority list. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in, turned back just before they closed. Funny how that works, I said. He grinned. The doors slid shut. And just like that, I was no longer the guy they forgot. I was the one they'd never overlook again. Epilogue, the new documentation. It dropped on a Tuesday. The new internal knowledge base. Months in the making. Version peer-reviewed, VP endorsed. System infrastructure, continuity and ownership. Authored by Ethan R. Ellis. Miles sent me the link before the announcement even hit Slack. You're live. I clicked through the pages. Clean UI, indexed architecture, the back-end dependencies finally named, categorized, and explained like the blueprint I always knew it was. Every section had a clear author tag. Every major system had my fingerprints now in full view. Not just buried in commit logs or whispered in troubleshooting threads. Visible. Official. There was a section labeled Previous Oversight Gaps. Carefully worded, scrubbed of personal names, but the implications were loud enough for anyone who'd been there. The footnote? Prior leads did not maintain continuity procedures. Emergency failovers were undocumented and personnel dependent. Standardization initiated Q3 by infrastructure lead. The old Amanda playbook, silence, spin, then credit snatching, was nowhere to be found. Her Slack status had been set to offline for 2 weeks. Word around the floor was she'd been transitioned to a non-technical coordinator role in a different department. No direct reports. No engineering permissions. No seat at the table she used to control. Jace was still around, quieter now. Priya floated to another team, rebranded as a data liaison. No one mentioned them much anymore. But people mentioned me. Not loudly. Not with fanfare. Just with a different kind of tone when they said my name. Measured. Intentional. Like they finally understood the difference between a voice in the room and the one who actually built the foundation it sits on. Miles messaged me again, hours later. Feels like they finally saw it. I typed, then paused. Then sent. They didn't see it. They just stopped looking past it. And that was enough. Because some systems don't need to shout. They just need to be recognized.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all. You're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.